You there? Hey, you there?
Yep.
Okay, cool. We're technically recording right now, but that's okay, folks. Let's do the. Let's. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. A little technical difficulty there for a sec there, but tonight, my special guest, man, I've been listening to this guy for a while, and he's a life coach. He helps out men kind of be men. There's this stigma also about like men above the age of 40 dating. It's got a very versatile guy, law of attraction, all that. And I have had the pleasure of having him on my show tonight. And I talked to him earlier in the week, and man, if you listen to his show, it's probably not for the faint of heart for some people, but at the same time, like I'll explain a little bit later in our conversation why it is I think he brings value to what it is that he does. And man, I am super stoked to have this guy, my man Paul. Paul, what's happening, man?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me on tonight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, we had a little technical difficulty at the beginning of the show, but that's okay. We're cool. So let me ask you something real quick, Paul. You know, I saw on one of your streams today. Is it true you know John Fitch?
I do. Yeah, I do a weekly panel show with him on Saturdays called Rule Zero. With him, Rollo Tomasi's on there, Ryan Stone, a bunch of guys from the space are all on that show.
I always said that if he had the charisma of Chael Sonnen, he would have been a bigger star than he was.
You think so?
I think so, because like Chael Sonnen's style is a lot like his. You know, I saw John fight at the FedEx Forum in 2009 December. I forgot who his opponent was back then, but I got to see him live, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's the thing about MMA versus like pro wrestling, right? Like pro wrestling's a show. Yes. it's a show, so you're there for the entertainment. A lot of the guys that are in MMA, John, I would include in this, is they just want to fight. You know, they're not there for the song and dance. They just want to beat people up. And so there's some guys like that in MMA where they're not showmen, but they can whoop ass. You know,
to be
John's like that,
right? Well, to be fair, you know, I had trained a little bit with it in the late 2000s, and I thought John was exciting to watch. You know, he really had a good style with it come to the wrestling. You know, he only got beat by the best of the best, really. I mean, you think about it. Everybody he ever got beat by either went up for the title or was the champion.
Mm-hmm. I asked, the first time I ever talked to him, I asked him about, because I'm a big believer in there's no such thing as winning and losing. Like there's winning and lessons, right?
No.
And I asked him, I was like, what was like the biggest lesson you got from a loss? And one of his biggest losses was he decided to go vegan for a while to train for a fight and to cut weight. And when he went into that fight, he just was weak. You know, he learned not to do that.
he was a big 170. I don't know why he wanted to fight at 155. I really don't, but
yeah, who knows why these guys do that?
Yeah, I guess it gives them an edge. But so, you know, I want to address the elephant in the room. By the way, what is? I've been watching your videos this week, and the Cadillac, the conversation that you've been having about the Cadillac and or not Cadillac,
the Ferrari,
yeah. Ferrari or Cadillac, no, Ford or Ferrari, but no,
yeah.
I love that your concept about the act of not having to, have the Ferrari to be able to attain the woman that you want, so to speak. Is that am I hitting the head on the nail? Excuse me.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole idea about it is, it's the message that this particular, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. And This particular guy he's friends with people that I know, and I don't want to ruin that. But what this guy's telling men is ruining men on the internet. right? And which is there's a lot of guys, I see them in my comments, I see them on Twitter all the time. They literally think that in order to meet and talk to women, that you have to be rich, that you have to have a Ferrari, that you have to be a CEO of a company or whatever. And it's complete nonsense. If you just walk around and go to the mall, you see all sorts of regular everyday people with women. It's a dumb thing to say.
Yeah.
And so in his video, what he said was that there's basically two types of guys out there. There's the top 5% of guys. They have Ferraris, they have a lot of money, they have their choice of women, and all the women are trying to get with those guys, and they're competing for those guys. And then there's the rest of you guys, the rest of you suckers out there that you can't possibly, like, women don't even notice you because you're invisible, and 90% of guys are invisible to women. And he said, well, I did this test, right? Late at night, took my girl to Jack in the Box, and when we left, I said, what did the cashier look like? And she's like, well, I don't know. I guarantee if you ask anybody, hey, what did the cashier look like after they left a Taco Bell or whatever, most people wouldn't even think about it, right? Yeah. Nobody's paying attention. So to use that as an example of, oh, women or guys are invisible to women, it's like, yeah, that guy was doing his job. He wasn't doing anything to, stand out, right? He wasn't trying to. He was just trying to do his job. It's a dumb thing to say. And then when he goes on to say, well, if he had a Ferrari, I guarantee she would know the color of his eyes were blue and stuff, whatever. And I'm just like, you're basically saying that unless you have a Ferrari, women, you like, women won't ever see you, right? And I'm like, if you literally just walk up and talk to a chick, that will make her see you. It's so simple, but that doesn't sell courses.
No,
that doesn't sell overpriced programs to get suckers out there to buy your Gumroad course or whatever.
Right. And I like that concept that you said, because, God forbid, have you ever seen the Fresh and Fit podcast?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've seen it a couple times.
They have this concept. See, you're being generous, or that guy, should I say, is being generous about the 5%. They believe in the 1%. Now, not without naming names, where's this guy from?
I don't want to say that either, because that would give it away too. But let's just say they're really big on gambling there. Okay. We'll say that.
Okay. Well, then there you go. I mean, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and a lot of these, there's all these concepts of like the 305s or whatever, and
304.
Yeah. That's Miami's. Yeah, that's Miami's, right?
I think it means it's a way of saying hoe, right? It's like, the word hoe, but spelled out with letters and then turned around backwards.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it meant like the area code of the, like, Miami, because
is
Miami,
that the area code?
I think it's 305 is, I just looked it up on my phone. I believe it's 305 is Miami, but you get where I was thinking, because it's these cities, in my opinion, like, you're from Colorado, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I believe that some of these concepts are a little bit, geographically unsound, because of the fact that, all right, Miami, there's an old expression about certain cities. You go to LA when you try to make it. You go to New York when you have made it, and you go to Miami when you try to make it as somebody else.
Okay.
And my opinion, from what I've seen, because I was just up in Boston, Massachusetts last week, and Amesbury, Massachusetts last week, and the mentality up there is way different. And you're talking like women that are between 7 and 10s up there, and yet I didn't get the impression that a lot of these women were going to go after guys that were probably driving Ferraris, so to speak. The 5% male, as your friends say, or as Fresh and Fit would say, the 1%. So I think it's geographically unsound to predict all of that in certain cities, especially.
Yeah, well, and that's a part of what I teach in my Practical Law of Attraction course, right? A lot of guys are online and they're literally just watching shows like Fresh and Fit. They're watching shows like the Whatever podcast. They're watching shows like Access Vegas, and they see these girls that are like OnlyFans girls, right? That's their job, to be 304s. And then they hear stories that these girls are telling about how slutty they are. And guys are like, oh, that's how all women are in the US. Like all women are broken in the US. It's like the US is a huge place. It's absolutely huge. We have 50 states here, right? We don't just have New York. We don't just have California. We don't have Nevada. We don't just have, Miami.
Yeah.
Come out to the middle of the country, and there's some great women out here still. It's such a dumb message that they're telling guys.
I agree 100% with that, because now I get it. Okay. When a lot of these, like, and God rest Kevin Samuel's soul, him, Andrew Tate before he got in trouble, all these guys, they have these concepts that I'm trying to think of how to explain it. They're, it's a little bit like, all right, it's a little chauvinistic in my opinion, not misogynistic, but a little bit kind of like, you do what I say when I say type thing, rather than, finding a woman that kind of maybe understands the concept of what her role might be and what it is that you expect from her in the first place. Because you can't change women in the first place. You can't just say, I'm going to do, when I get with her, she'll do this for me and stuff like that. She's already got to have her upbringing where it is inclusive to what it is that you're trying to accomplish with her.
Yeah, that's true. Guys watch stuff like that and they think, I'm gonna find a girl and I'm gonna tell her how to be, right? I'm gonna tell her she better respect me and stuff like that. It's like, if you have to tell anybody that they need to respect you, nobody's going to respect you.
No.
Respect is earned. It's something I learned in the military. It's an absolute fact of life. People don't just respect you because you tell them to, and demanding that they do, or else, that's basically an ultimatum, and an ultimatum is a declaration of powerlessness. So instead of talking about it, you got to be about it. And when you're out dating, all you really need to be doing is setting the tone, taking the lead, and then testing a woman's ability to follow your lead. Some women aren't going to follow your lead, and that's okay.
Yeah.
They're just not long-term relationship candidates, right? But you're going to find this when you're testing a woman's ability to follow your lead, that there's plenty of women that are looking for a guy to lead them, and they are happy to follow your lead. Those are the chicks that you don't have to tell them anything, because you're leading and they're respecting you for leading.
Sure. And you kind of have to have it in your mind what is conducive to what it is your current lifestyle is. If you're wanting a woman that is a little bit more independent, has a career, potentially makes more money than you do, that sort of thing, then you need to already have your mind trained that this woman is going to probably carry herself this way. But because if you get in a relationship with her, or even go as far as to marry her, and then you expect her to drop all that to become what it is that you wanted in the first place, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. There's a lot of boss women out there. There's a lot of boss babes out there, and the problem with boss babes is, there's it's a two-part thing, right? A lot of boss babes don't want to be boss babes in a relationship. They want a guy that's more of a strong sort of leading character than they are. But the problem is with those women is, because they're type A personalities all the time, they are going to test the crap out of you, and they're not pleasant to be around.
No.
So those types of women, you can, if you have a really strong frame, they're fine. They'll fall into your frame, and it doesn't matter what they do for a living. It doesn't matter how much money they make. And that's the thing that guys don't understand. They think that, they have to be making all this money to attract women. Well, the way I teach guys to date is they don't even know how much money you make. You invite them out for drinks at first, which most guys, even on a $30,000 a year salary, can afford a couple of drinks a week, and you take them out for drinks, you meet them at the place. They don't see what kind of car you drive, right? You keep it low investment. And then you make these women earn more expensive dates, right? By their investment in you. And some chicks aren't going to be down with that. Some chicks will be like, no, I want you to take me out to a steak dinner. Well, that tells you everything you need to know about her, and you just move on. There's always another woman, right? There's 4 billion women on the planet. A lot of guys get fixated on one girl, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to ruin my chances with this one girl if I do this. It's like, who cares? There's there's 4 billion chicks out there. So you just test these women to see if they're going to follow your lead or not, and fall into your frame and follow your program. And then some chicks are, some chicks aren't. And it's just a simple process of elimination, you know?
On the other side of the plate or spectrum, you have a world now of guys, particularly during the pandemic, that turned into big introverts. I mean, I have a look, believe me, I will admit this out loud, that when the pandemic happened and I was at home more, I wasn't going to the gym like I was supposed to, I wasn't socializing as I want to, whether it was my fault or not. I'm not in the business of making excuses. But now that we are in this point in our lives that we are recovering from this pandemic that happened, the world turned into a bunch of introverts because we isolated so much that we forgot what it was like to kind of feel out that energy, so to speak, whether it's interacting with people or even with women. And so you have women who are, you know, maybe like rightfully confident, and then you have the guys over here who are unconfident. But we have this spectrum now where men where the women are kind of taking advantage of these guys. And I think I see an undertone in your message and stuff like that about not getting taken advantage of by women that are supposedly 9s and 10s, and not putting them so much on the pedestal that they think they should be on constantly.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a reason for that. It's not just not being taken advantage of. It's that when you learn how to seduce women, get better with women, how to date multiple women, you realize that women don't want to be put on pedestals, you know? And the thing is, a lot of nice guy behavior, they put women on pedestals because they think that they're standing out, right? Because you hear women complain all the time. This guy's a jerk. This guy didn't do this. This guy, he's a narcissist, right? But they keep going and dating those types of guys. Right. But so these guys that are like, oh, well, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to be a nice guy. I'm going to bring her flowers and chocolates. I'm going to build rapport with her on a dating app for days and weeks and months on end, you know, until she feels comfortable. And then I'm going to ask her out maybe in 3 months. And the thing is, they think that they're standing out by being the nice guy, but they're literally being like 97% of the guys out there. The guys that like, the actual 3% guys, and when I say 3%, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about 3% of guys that understand women and what women respond to. Yeah. Those guys don't do that kind of stuff. They keep dates low investment. They don't lead with their wallet. They don't put girls on pedestals. They sort of treat girls like bratty little sisters, and chicks eat it up. They eat it up, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and a lot of it is you have to kind of get that mojo back, you know, even like one of your things I've noticed is that you are very good about teaching men that are above the age of 40. Am I hitting it on the head?
Well, I think I just resonate with guys that are over 30, over 40 because of this, you know, because of the gray hair. The thing is, like, people sort of judge you by your appearance a lot, especially on YouTube. YouTube Shorts are like this is brutal, man. Like, the comments I get on YouTube Shorts are just absolutely brutal, but they're always from like 13-year-old kids going, what the hell does this guy know? He doesn't know anything about dating. Yeah. You know, like they have this assumption that if you're over 30 or over 40, you should be married and settled down and not thinking about women anymore.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like, dude, the divorce rate in this country is like astronomical. There's plenty of people that are dating after 30 and after 40 because of they did the marriage thing and they got divorced. There's lots of after divorce dating, you know.
And then you wonder why, you know, anxiety and depression rose from 13% in the 60s to like 68% in the, you know, the 2020s, you know, because they put themselves on this thing. I have to do this. You know, I got to graduate when I graduate high school, I got to graduate college by this time. And then by the time I'm 23, 24, I'm married, you know, and then it doesn't happen. And then all of a sudden you realize you don't realize that, you know, this life is long, baby. This life is long, you know, pace yourself, you know, because.
Well, that's the problem with our society, right? Like we've been raised under the umbrella of feminism since the 60s. Most of us, not me, but a lot of guys, luckily my parents are still together. They hate each other, but they're still together. But a lot of people are raised by single moms now, and this is not to crap on single moms, but because of that, a lot of guys are raised with 100% female influence growing up, right? They're raised by their moms. They go to school. Their teachers are primarily female. You know what I mean? They have this feminine influence. And so boys are also taught that masculinity is toxic. So we're raised to be defective women, right? And so to get to your point about how we're thinking, oh, we're missing out because we're not getting married and stuff in our 20s. That's what women think. That's what women think, because women have a biological time clock. Guys aren't, like, evolutionary speaking, we're not supposed to think that way.
Right.
You know, but we've been conditioned to think that way.
Well, yeah. I mean, do you think that that's why it's a little bit more accepting for, like, let's say I just turned 40 a month ago. And let's say I was to date a girl, ballpark, maybe 23, 24 years old or something like that. It would probably be a little bit more acceptable because of the fact that a man kind of has to earn a little bit more as far as, like, what it is he's able to accomplish in life, and the woman can kind of marry into it, and that's why it's a little bit more accepting, maybe.
No, I think when, like, you're talking about my message about how we have time, like women's eggs are expiring, but ours don't. Yeah, no, it's not necessarily about us being able to provide for them better. It's just that we don't have the same biological time clock. We like, sperm's cheap and eggs are expensive. You know what I mean? Like, we still have our sperm into our 80s, right? But women's eggs run out often before their 40s, and sometimes their early 40s. They're out of eggs, and so if they still have eggs after that, now pregnancy is dangerous. You know what I mean? But for us, you can have a baby at 45 with a 23-year-old girl, and that baby's going to be just as healthy as if you were 23 having a baby with a 23-year-old girl,
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I don't know what Al Pacino's kid's going to be like. I'm sure you heard about that, but what is he?
Yeah, look at that guy. He's like 80 years old having babies with I don't know how old she is, 30 or something.
I think she's 29 or something like that. I mean, I could be exaggerating, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean,
what a pimp, man. What a pimp.
I'm telling you, man. I mean, I don't know if I want to be like him when I'm 80, because, I mean, come on. I remember comedian Theo Vaughn talks about all the time how his father was 70 when he had him. So how many quality years did he have with his dad? I mean, come on.
Right. And that's why, like, I don't recommend that. I don't tell guys, wait until you're 60 and keep having kids, because you don't want to be trying to chase a toddler around with a pacemaker and stuff. No. And I do believe in being a participant in your kid's life if you're going to have kids. There's guys like Justin Waller out there, and not to crap on Justin, but I think he's got multiple kids with multiple moms, and he's flying all around the country, and he thinks he's being a good provider for them because he's bringing them all the money. I don't know how much time he spends with his kids, though.
Right. Well,
you know what I mean? And there's like pro wrestlers going to pro wrestling. Those guys make a lot of money, and they're on the road constantly, and their kids absolutely resent them because they were never there. Like, I don't think that's a good idea. Well, so if you're going to have kids, you want to spend some time with those kids, I think.
It's funny you mentioned pro wrestling, because Jerry Lawler, they say that, like, I'm from Memphis, and Jerry's the king of Memphis, and Jerry is, first of all, he's got kids, Brian Christopher, God rest his soul, just passed away. He's got Kevin. I can't remember if he had another kid or not, but the irony about that is that I bet you that they got into that business to get closer to their dad, because Brian obviously wrestled for, probably 20 years before he passed away. And then his son, Kevin, who not many people know, he's a referee, and I don't know who all he's refereed outside of local, but you get what I'm saying, right? So there is this stigma about it. Oh, and by the way, Jerry Lawler is a prime example of an older man dating younger women. When he was in his,
he's a pimp, man.
Oh man, when he was in his early, a little short sidetrack.
Yeah.
When he was in his early, this is like 2001, 2002, something like that. When he was in his early 50s, he took a 19-year-old to a prom, and I was like, dang, man. I mean, I'm not sure.
That's what wasn't that Elvis did that with Priscilla? Wasn't she like 13 when he met her?
No, well, I know. Okay, I know that Jerry Lee Lewis married his second cousin who was 13 at the time when they got married.
That was Jerry. Yeah.
But
But I'm pretty sure, I think Priscilla Presley was pretty young too.
Yeah, she was young too, but Elvis, I don't know if I don't know how old she was, but that wasn't as notorious as the Jerry Lee Lewis story. But
yeah, but that's because it was his second cousin.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I was like, wow, you guys. I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones, but that's some Targaryen shit right there.
Yeah. That's some Appalachian shit.
like Lannister. It's like Jamie and Cersei Lannister or something like that. Come on now. But
yeah.
But yeah, Lawler, man, but that's kind of the world that we live in some aspects, going back to why it is that women, there always is this kind of naturally the, younger woman, older man, sort of thing. As long as it doesn't cross the line of, being illegal or statutory,
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, I don't know what the youngest should be at my age I should date, but how equally yoked am I really going to be with like a 19-year-old? Come on now. I mean, at least long term. Yeah.
Well, so I always followed the half my age plus 7 rule.
Yeah.
Which is that's a pretty good rule of thumb, but and that was mainly a preference thing, because I found that if I dated younger than that, I couldn't connect with the chick. I had nothing in common with them. It was hard to have conversations with them. And I was like, this sucks. I just, the pop culture references didn't resonate. They talked about totally different things. Now I talked to Rich Cooper about this. I don't know if you know who Rich Cooper is.
I've heard the name.
So I talked to Rich Cooper about this once, and he goes, well, I mean, like women offer different value to you. He goes, if you really want to have, compelling conversations, save that stuff for the boys, and then save your girl for fun, other stuff. And I'm like, okay, I can see that maybe working for some people, not my cup of tea. So I like to follow the half my age plus 7 rule. That seemed to work well,
I've heard that before. Are you currently in a relationship?
I am. Yeah. I've been dating, I call her Nurse Chick for 2.5 years now, I think.
Oh, okay. Is that what? Okay. I've heard you mention that. I've heard you say that before. So that's cool. But
yeah.
Does she share or understand or take heed to your philosophies that you put on your show?
She does. Yeah. In fact, she watches every episode. She's probably one of my biggest supporters. She, so let me tell you something about chicks.
Okay. All right.
And you might have experienced this before in your life, right? But a chick, if you're a little bit of a mystery, right? When you first meet them, you don't give them everything away. You let them do 80% of the talking. When they ask you stuff about you keep everything short and vague, right? Or even you playfully mess around and don't tell them the truth, right? So like they ask you what you do for a living. This is a perfect example of not leading with your wallet. So I'm an IT director by trade. I make in the 6 figures, but I don't lead with that. So when chicks ask me what I did for a living, I would never tell them that. I would tell them that I'm a millionaire playboy by day, but I dress up like a bat and fight crime at night. And they're like, come on, what are you doing? And I'm like, just saving the world stuff. What do you do? And I would turn it around back on them, right? Just never answer their questions, never really give anything too much away. And what happens is chicks love talking about themselves. So they'll quickly forget about that. They'll start talking about themselves a lot. You just ask them leading questions and stuff. And then they realize, holy crap, I don't know anything about this guy, but I really like him. So what they do, they're like detectives. They will go online. They will go down rabbit holes. They will try to find everything they can about you. They'll look at your Facebook page. They'll look at all your family members. Anyway, Nurse Chick totally did that. And she ended up going down some rabbit hole, and she found my podcast. And then she found my TikToks. And she started following me on TikTok. I had no idea. And then one day, I think it was maybe our 3rd or 4th date, she's over here at my place. And all of a sudden, she brings up hypergamy, the concept of hypergamy. Nobody talks about hypergamy off the internet, right? Normal conversations, no one talks about that stuff. So I just look at her, and I'm just like, she's found my stuff. She's found my podcast and stuff. This is funny. I just played it off, cocky, funny type shit testing stuff. And, but then I did a TikTok the next day saying, hey, you ever get the impression that someone's internet stalking you and they they just bring up oddly specific things. And I got a text message 30 minutes later from her going, okay, I confess, I found your podcast.
I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, she's on board with it. In fact, she's read a lot of the books I talk about. She's had her son read a lot of the books I talk about. So yeah, I think she's on board with it.
Oh, okay. I was just curious. Do you have any sons or daughters yourself?
Yeah, I've got a son who's 14 and he's a freshman in high school. And then my daughter is 18. She's going to turn 19 in January and she's off at college right now.
Oh man. Good luck to you on that one.
I got her over the finish line. She graduated high school without getting pregnant. I think I did the job there.
Yeah.
Now I just got to make sure that she stays off of that pole.
Yes.
And then I will have done my job as a man.
You know what? You were reading my mind. I was just thinking about that Chris Rock joke. I got to keep my baby off the pole.
Yep. My daughter's got a good head on her shoulders though, and she's really driven. She's kind of one of those. She's going to grow up and be a boss babe, and and so it's interesting because she knows what I talk about in my podcast too, and it sort of goes against like the whole boss babe persona or boss babe, I guess, narrative. But the thing is, like, that's the world we live in. Mm-hmm. We live in a world where women can literally do whatever they want. They just have to understand the realities of the world, right? You can go and be an executive somewhere, but you can't be the perfect mom. You can't have it all. You can be a part-time mom and a part-time CEO, or you could be a full-time CEO and a full-time mom, but you can't be 100% in both places. You just can't, nobody can.
I mean, it's at least you could do it, but not be very good at the job of being a parent. That's for sure. And you've seen it, but like you said, you really have to kind of put your commitment into one or the other, really, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, if you want to do the absolute best job possible, but I mean, like I said, that's the world we live in. And that's a part of what red pill really is. We talk a lot about red pill on my podcast. Red pill is about what is, not what should be. And a lot of traditional conservative guys want to revert back to the 1950s where women stayed home and they didn't vote and men went out and worked. Okay. But that maybe that should happen, but that's not what's happening,
Right. So, and then, of course, then you had like in the 60s and stuff like that, men would go, be able to grab a beer every day before they went home and to a dinner and stuff like that. It's just, I agree. And the world got, contrary to popular belief, we actually work harder in this world than people give us credit for, because there's not a whole lot of spare time like it used to be either.
Oh yeah. Everybody has the same 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
but some people, they have so much going on. I imagine you have a day job besides the podcast. And so trying to do that, trying to do the podcast and make content, going to the gym, making sure you're eating, whatever, making sure your dogs are going to the vet and stuff like that. Yeah. It takes a lot of time management. It's difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a ride, but like I said, are you in your 40s or 50s?
Yeah. I'm 50s out. God,
I'm just asking.
No, I'm 40. I'm 44.
Okay, so you're not that much older than I am. Okay.
Yeah.
So no, I was just curious.
Don't let this fool you. I worked in IT for a long time.
Well, okay, yeah, I get it. It's just like, well, it's funny. I'm kind of having the 13-year-old mindset right now because I'm thinking, like people that have grown adult kids will be like in their 50s and stuff like that. So,
okay.
But that's not always the case. What am I talking about? I was what? My dad was 41, 42 when I graduated high school. So, I mean,
Well, I purposefully, it probably wasn't the best idea ever, but I was running for that white picket fence when I was young. That's part of what I talk about on my podcast a lot in making better decisions with women. Because I was married and divorced. And I got married when I was 20 years old. And I wanted to have kids, relatively early, like in my 20s, because I always had the impression that my parents didn't understand me when I was a teenager. I thought that they were too old. They didn't understand where I was coming from. They couldn't remember being a teenager. So I wanted to have kids younger so that when my kids were in high school, I could remember what it was like being a teenager and I could resonate with them better.
Yeah.
And then, and so what I realized having teenagers is, no, I remember exactly how it was when I was a teenager. Um, and I'm sure my parents did too. They just really were trying to protect me more, instead of, and I just think they just went about it wrong,
Yeah.
So I think you could have kids older and still remember what it was like being a teenager, and it wouldn't matter.
I remember when I was a teenager that I thought that adults would forgot what it was like to be young, but
that's what I thought.
But when you get older, unfortunately, that's the one thing I hate about life is that by the time your body gives out, your mind is better than it ever was. That's just like an athletes, people, stuff like that. That's one of the things about women who have kids at a young age without a man in their life, right? Then they grow up and they're by the time they're maybe in their mid to late 30s, maybe even 40s, depending on their maturity level and their understanding. Then all of a sudden it's like, wow, but now I'm kind of worn out. I'm kind of worn out. I'm not the same young girl I used to be, all that stuff. And that's unfortunate that our society has not learned from their predecessors what it is that they should be doing at this point in their life. Should I be having a kid at this age? Should I be having a kid with this guy, even though I know he's a complete dumbass? We haven't learned that yet. Why is that? That's a good question to ask ourselves.
Well, I think, if we're just talking about relationships, most of us learn our relationships by watching our parents. No one actively teaches us what it's like to vet women for being, somewhat sane and rational. No one shows us what a healthy mental, a chick who has a healthy mentality looks like. And we just sort of look at what our parents did, and our parents, my parents fight all the time. They ignore each other. They do the silent treatment on each other. They have like the worst relationship ever. Right. If I send a text message to my mom, she'll reply back. We'll have a conversation. We'll plan things out. And then I'll go do something and my dad has no idea what's going on. And I'm like, doesn't mom talk to you? He goes, no. And same thing. I text him, same thing. He doesn't tell her what's going on either. And that's the relationship I learned. So that's when I went into my marriage, I had that same dynamic with my now ex-wife, and it was just an unhealthy situation. And I ended up hating her after 7 years, and we ended up being married for 14. So the last half of my marriage, I was miserable. And it wasn't until the relationship after that I started looking into this stuff and studying sexual dynamics in psychology of women and stuff like that. Like why is everything I'm doing wrong, right? And why is every relationship I've ever had failed, and what am I doing wrong? So I start looking into all this stuff. I realized that I just didn't have an understanding of how relationships should be and how to manage a relationship as a man. And as a man, historically we were the leaders of the relationship. We were the patriarchy, right? And we managed that situation. And if you go back, 100 years, men, like what men said went in the relationship, and women would follow their lead. But those men had strong frame. Those men knew what they were doing because they also had their dads to learn from too. We just don't have that anymore.
Yeah, it's real bad here I'm in the mid-South, so to speak, but in the South, it's a big epidemic right now about men being raised by women without a strong man in their life. Mm-hmm. I was talking to one of my coworkers, and he's, for lack of a better term, he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. But okay. I remember when we had a conversation, he talked about like why men, why men down there do all these things like throw things and will hit each other out of emotion and stuff like that. And they said that they learned that from a woman. Like, what's the first thing that a woman does out of anger that has a very low IQ? She'll pick up something and throw it. And a lot of these boys that were raised by these women pick up these things. And I never thought about it that way. That was the smartest thing I've ever heard him say.
Yeah, that's going back to what I said about men are raised as defective women. There's a really good book. Well, the concept of the book is good. It's called Boy Crisis. It was written by a guy named Warren Farrell, and it's a global issue, and it all stems from the feminist movement and pushing men out of the homes and encouraging divorce and single mom households. But because boys are raised by single moms and like their teachers and all that influence, it's raised a generation of boys that lack masculinity and they don't have a masculine figure in their life. And the thing about the difference between having a masculine figure in the house and a feminine figure is that masculine figures in the house typically have rules. Rules are easy to follow. Kid knows, okay, if I do X, I'm going to get slapped. If I don't do X, I'm not going to get slapped. We're good. Don't do X. Boom. Right? Well, with a woman, women are emotional, and emotions are fleeting, and they're fickle, and they come and go. So one day, mom might be okay with you doing X, but the next day it drives her nuts, and she yells at you for doing X, and you're like, "What? Yesterday it was fine. Like, what's going on?" So you never know what's going on. So you end up in this situation where you're just constantly trying to make mom happy, right? And then boys grow up trying to make their girlfriends happy and trying to make their wives happy. Thing is, women are never happy, and you can't make them happy. And the the closest thing you can do by that is ignore their emotional roller coasters. Don't take them seriously, and just let them you just got to be an oak, right? Or
you have to kind of
in the wind, the wave. Yeah, and they're the wind just blowing on you, and you just gotta be stable and just deal with it. But you never yell at them. You don't fall into their frame. You don't jump on their emotional roller coaster. And what happens is women feel more safe and secure when they realize that you're the level-headed person in the relationship.
Yeah.
And then they are the closest thing to happy you'll get.
The irony is, okay, my mother, the best advice my mother ever gave me, and she probably don't think I remember this, but I remember her telling me this. I was in my early 20s. She said, "Hank, God just wired us differently."
Mm-hmm.
He just wired us differently. Whether, I don't know what people's beliefs are out there, but I mean, it made sense. I mean, that's where the emotion over logic takes place. Sometimes you just have to be understanding towards things like that. You can't logically explain it. Sometimes you can, you could have a strategy to pick them up. Like remember that movie, What Women Want, with Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
I forgot what the guy's name was, but it was his boss. And he goes, "Nick, you could get in their pants better than any man I've ever met, but you don't know how to get in their psyche at all." And that's why they put a woman in charge at the time of that particular division, which there's also this thing about women where, never take advice from a woman about a woman either. So I don't know if that's I've heard that before. I don't know how true it is. I
found that to be spot on accurate. Spot on accurate. There's several reasons for it. One, usually when here's the thing, like most women, like the women on the street, right? The women on the street, maybe your mom, a sister or something like that. They take your feelings into consideration. And so they want to spare your feelings. So if you go and ask a girl like, "Hey, what am I doing wrong here?" They're like, "Honey, you're not doing anything wrong. You just need to be yourself, okay? She's probably just busy. That's why she's not answering your calls and stuff like that," right? They won't be honest with you because they're trying to spare your feelings. Another thing women do is if you ask them, "Hey, what do women want?" Right? Women immediately think of boyfriend situation. They think of what they want in a relationship, and it's always the beta comfort type stuff. "Oh, I want him to give me flowers and chocolates, and I want him to rub my feet and just hold me and tell me I'm pretty," and all that kind of stuff, right? And the thing is, that's not what it makes them sexually attracted, right? And you've got to get them sexually attracted to you before they will let you do the beta comfort stuff on them. If you lead with the beta comfort stuff, they think it's weird and creepy that you're doing that you're acting like a boyfriend when you just met them, right? But they don't tell you that. And women don't think about that when you ask them what they want, because they do want the beta comfort stuff, but that's not what leads to that, right? And then what else is it? Rollo has this hypothesis. Rollo Tomasi has the hypothesis of sisterhood uber alles, which is sisterhood above all else. So if a woman thinks that you're sort of a beta male, she's going to protect the sisterhood by not letting you mate with the sisterhood, because they want to make sure that their girls are getting the best possible guys they can get because of women's hypergamous nature. I don't know if that's true or not, but I definitely know that they give crap advice. And I think it's more along the lines of them trying to spare your feelings, you know?
Yeah. Well, and then there's also this narrative of men are built for honor and women are built for survival. That sort of thing. I don't know if you've ever heard that term before or not, but supposedly, when men do honorable things and stuff like that, and women strategically put themselves in a position to where they are in a better situation than they were in yesterday. That's half the reason why they marry you. That's half the reason why that they, want to be, in this, in this space, this profession, this everything is all about survival and trying to thrive in the best circumstance that they could be in.
Yeah, well, I haven't heard it that way before, but we often say in the space that men are idealistic and women are opportunistic. So men are the real romantics. Men are the ones that believe in the fairy tale, that they're going to ride in on a shining horse and rescue the damsel in distress. Mm-hmm. Women like the concept of that, and you would think that that's what they believe too, because they're always into the sappy love stories, but that's not what women do. Women act on opportunity, right? They do want to get with the best guy they could possibly get, and why wouldn't they, right? I would too, right? Guys just don't care about that sort of thing, but that women absolutely do, and they are looking at things from the perspective of I want to have strong offspring, that will thrive and will do well in life. And so women do think about that stuff more than guys and less about the love stuff. So yeah, that's that's how I've heard it.
Yeah, no, I read Myron Gaines's book, Women Deserve Less. Did you read that one?
I have not. It's a short one though, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's less than 100 pages. I know that's for sure. And good if I'm not mistaken, but that was a good book. And he was I thought about it as I was talking, because I don't want to get copyrighted for anything that I said, but he was the one who mentioned, the women, are built for survival and men are built for honor type thing. And it was
okay.
And it's not to be sexist. That's not like, that's the one thing that I don't want to come off as sexist. We're just, the idea, in my opinion, about anything in life when you're with around other people is that you want to be able to understand each other as the best as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. I think that's, go ahead.
I'm not terribly afraid of being labeled as sexist or misogynist. I get that a lot.
Right.
But that's mainly because when you start talking about truths about sexual dynamics, oftentimes some things just aren't flattering towards women, and it's not that it's necessarily bad. It's just the way it is. But if you say it, all of a sudden you're hating on women. It's like, no, we're just educating guys so that they can navigate the playing field,
Well, and one of the things that you don't want to put out there, at least I know I don't want to put out there, is that, I like women. You know what I'm saying? Like, I actually like women, and that's a big misconception amongst these a lot of guys that are like dating life coaches and stuff like that, is that and when they say things like that, they think that they don't like women. That's not true at all. You're just you're reiterating the truth, and it's been proven in many aspects.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the iron rules of Rollo Tomasi is that red pill isn't there so that men hate women. It's there so that men don't hate women for what they can never be for them. And a lot of guys have this idealistic fantasy of happily ever after and love is unconditional and love will conquer all. And that's just not true. Right. There's a burden of performance for men, and we have to learn how to work within the system. We have to understand how women have a hypergamous nature and how to use that to our advantage. You can do that and have healthy relationships, but you have to know the rules of the game so that you can play the game right. And telling guys not to say any of this stuff because it's unflattering to women actually puts guys at a disservice.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, Trip Kramer's talked about that. Do you know who Trip Kramer is?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Trip advice. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm this close to getting him on the show.
Okay. Yeah. Good luck with that.
I'm this close.
I've never tried getting him on the show, so I don't know how hard it is.
You know what? It's within reach, but I'm looking forward to it if he does, because he's the one guy I think that should be on, Fresh and Fit, because you've seen Alpha M, right? The big black dude, right?
Yeah, Alpha Male Strategies.
Yeah, I like him. He's good. He's really good. Now, he's really good. He's been on the Fresh and Fit podcast and stuff like that. And I don't understand why Trip Kramer hasn't been on there yet. But
I would say Trip is kind of. I think a lot of his content's a little more sort of on the purple pill, blue pill side, and that probably doesn't resonate with the Fresh and Fit crowd.
Okay, I can see that. I could see that, and I've talked to him before and stuff like that, and I do like one of his philosophies, and kind of take a little bit of a 180 turn about something,
Mm-hmm.
There's always this stigma about, men need to lose weight and stuff like that. And you should look your best. You should do the best you can. You should, feel better, look better, do better than you can. But it's not as necessarily 100% cohesive to do that. That being said, the best advice that Trip ever gave me, or should I say, that I've ever heard from Trip, was it's like, all right, if I were to ask my weight, is my weight going to be a problem? Well, if let's say that I wanted to have tattoos and long hair and ripped jeans and all that, I'm probably going to attract a specific type of woman when I do that. It's going to be very minority, but you're going to attract that type of woman. That being said, there are women out there that do like guys like that, but you're probably going to have a little bit harder time trying to find them if you don't kind of have a little bit more of a versatile type style or look about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with weight. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I mentioned Rollo a lot. He's a big influence on me, his work.
Yes.
So shout out to Rollo. I think sometimes Rollo doesn't think that I think as highly of him as I do.
Oh, do you know?
Because
have you ever talked to him?
Oh, I talk to him all the time. Yeah, no, because I started off in this space reading Dr. Robert Glover's work and Corey Wayne's work. So I talk about those guys a lot.
I know who Corey Wayne is.
And Rollo absolutely hates Corey Wayne, just hates his guys. So I think he doesn't like that I talk about it so much. But no, Rollo's a big influence on me too. And Rollo has an old article, I think from 2012, called "Have a Look." You got to have a look. And women are often almost like casting agents trying to cast their type, right? And so as long as you have an attractive look, you can fit a role for some chick. I will say this though, because I used to be an overweight guy. When I first got divorced, I was like 50 pounds overweight, and I had a terrible time on the dating circuit. I struggled, and I did finally get into a relationship with a gal. She was into heavier set guys. Like her ex-husband was a heavier set guy. She ended up, when we broke up, she ended up getting with another heavy set guy. But like the first year that we got together, I lost all that weight. I lost all of it. I got really in shape. And I think she was almost intimidated by it because she didn't really want to have to work out so hard. And so I started being like Mr. Hardcore. I still am. I'm like, I will not go back to that. And then when I broke up with her, I had an easy time on the dating circuit. It was like night and day. So I do recommend to guys that if they are having a hard time and they're overweight, definitely hit the gym and work on that. But I know guys, there's a guy in my beer club right now. He's a pretty heavy set guy, but he's funny as hell. He's a stand-up comedian in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Dude he has side chicks. He's got all sorts of dates. He cleans up, but he's funny as hell. So, I mean, it can work, you know. Chicks don't just look at looks, you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, that's the thing about it. I used to be. That was the one thing that really kind of like always helped me out. Is I was a pretty funny guy, you know, and then I could be myself. There's a difference between being a comedian and being funny. And you if you can be funny, you don't have to be a comedian. You can be funny and, you know, be able to obtain a sort of charm with other people that you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're socially calibrated and you're pretty witty and you're quick on your feet, chicks like that. Chicks like that. I will say, like, what I tell guys that are a little heavy set is you typically will have a better chance meeting women in person because you get to showcase all your faculties. You get to showcase your sense of humor. You get to showcase your body language. You get to showcase, like, you know, your dress and how you look and all that kind of stuff, which women take all of that in. But on like a dating app, chicks are really just looking at how you look, you know? And so, so if you're just doing dating apps, it does behoove you to lose the weight. But if you are meeting chicks in person, you're a social guy,
Right.
You can get away with it, you know?
Absolutely. And of course, you know, the dating app scene, I've done it before and it worked out in my favor 10 years ago. But now you've got women that are doing way, and men too. Let's put men in that category that would do way more catfishing on there, you know?
Yeah. I love catfish dates though. And I'll tell you why. So when I was first trying to get better with women, because what would happen is I was able to get dates easily, right? Because I like I said, I lost all the weight, and all of a sudden it was just like shooting fish in a barrel, getting dates, hooking up with chicks, but I couldn't keep chicks around longer than like 2 or 3 dates. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? It was because I was like pushing for relationships every chick I talked to. I was being needy. I was being a needy little bitch. And I started realizing that when I started reading this stuff. And I learned from what was it? No More Mr. Nice Guy. Wait a second. What were we talking about? I went off on a tangent here. I learned. Let's see. Let's go back a little bit. What was I saying?
I forgot. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Let's see. How do we? We were talking about dating apps. Dating apps, right?
Yes.
Okay, dating apps, and you said that catfishing. That's right.
There we go. Yes, sir.
Right. So I learned it wasn't from No More Mr. Nice Guy, but Dr. Robert Glover's second book, Dating Essentials for Men. He talked about if you haven't been on a date in a while, you want to go on what he calls a 12 for 12, which is 12 dates, 12 random women in a 12-week period. And you're not trying to sleep with them. You're just going out there practicing banter and body language and being social. And I was like, well, I'm able to get dates. So, okay, I don't necessarily need to do this, you know? But the thing was, like, there's a lot of catfish out there. So what I ended up doing was using the catfish dates as those practice dates.
Yes.
So I would go out and I would see like some fat pig come in the door, and I'm like, okay, well, it's practice mode now. And I would be pleasant with her. I would buy the drink and I would practice my body language. I'd practice, you know, all this stuff. And then at the end, I would, you know, at the end of 1 or 2 drinks, I would say, okay, well, it's nice meeting you. Best of luck in your dating, pay the bill, and I would go home, you know? And then I would chalk that up to an excellent practice date. And a lot of guys don't want to do that. They get mad at these chicks for doing that. They turn around and go home. They tell her off for one, like, oh, you're a fat pig. You don't look like you look like in your pictures on your dating app. F you, you're disingenuous. They go home and then they jerk off. To me, that's a waste of time driving out to a venue, telling a woman off, and then going home and being alone. Whereas you could have gone there, gotten practice, and then when you go on your next date with an actual hot chick, you've already practiced all this body language. It's muscle memory now. You don't even have to think about it anymore. And a lot of guys it's a wasted opportunity.
Absolutely. Let's go to the comments real quick. You know this one. Hello.
Oh, yeah. Hey, she reverse catfished me.
What do you mean? Because she looked like a 10 or whatever? I mean, it's just
no, like she was cute on her pictures on the dating app, but all of her pictures were selfies and stuff. And usually, like, chicks with selfies that are, you know, you can't see their whole body. Usually they're catfish. And I was like, well, I didn't really expect much out of this date, right? it was a coffee date because she used to work graveyard shifts.
Yeah.
And so I went and met her for coffee. I don't recommend coffee dates typically because it sort of puts out the friendship vibe, but it was the only opportunity. So
Okay.
went and met her for coffee, and I'm sitting in this place and I see her walk in, and she works out, right? She comes in with these super tight jeans with an ass like pow. And I'm like, holy shit, this is for real. This isn't a practice date. Like, this is for real. Like, it's game time. So that's how I met Nurse Chick. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's cool, man. I was, you know, and you guys 2.5 years or whatever you said.
Yeah. 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's so y'all met during the prime of the pandemic too. So there you go.
Yeah, I was one of those guys that was out dating during the pandemic. Out on the western slope of Colorado, most of us didn't give a crap about it, and even when everything was locked down, when the restaurants and stuff weren't open,
Yeah.
I would meet chicks on a dating app, and I would say, "Hey, why don't you meet me at this park, and I'll bring a backpack and I'll smuggle a bottle of wine." You know, and I would go and have dates in the park with a bottle of wine. It still worked. You know.
Yeah, I'll say this, man. Like when you live in a city, though, you got that melting pot full of personalities. So whatever your stance is probably not going to be the same as the. It's probably going to. You have more in common with 500 people and not a lot in common with the other 500. So, but that's cool, man. I like that. And a good advice about the coffee thing, because in 2017 I took out a girl that I had really liked a lot, and after the date, and now thinking about it after you mentioned it, it did kind of come off like a little bit of a friendship vibe, or even maybe possibly like borderline business, even though there was no business being talked.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a certain vibe. But if you've been dating long enough, you can make it work. You can still make it flirty and stuff if you've gone on enough practice dates with catfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could do that. So I wasn't too worried about it, but I don't recommend it to guys because that's really how it comes off. Like
Right.
friends go out for coffee, lovers go out for drinks in the evening.
Yeah. It's so funny. I remember when I was younger, one of the advice that I heard was that don't be high-fiving a chick on the first date or fist bumping and stuff like that. But now you got these married couples and stuff like that. They'll kind of do that as being like, I don't know if ironic or jokingly or something like that. And that just wasn't something that you did growing up. That was a bad body language towards attraction, so to speak, because that's what you do with your boys.
Yeah. That's a big mistake that men and women do. You'll see it a lot on dating apps where women are like friends first. We got to be friends first, right? And a lot of guys think that too. They're like, I want to find my best friend. I want to get in a relationship with my best friend. Well, if you go out looking for a friend or a best friend, you're going to end up in the friend zone. You've got to go out there looking at it for what it is first, which is you're looking for a lover. And you've got to treat them like that. Like they're not your best friend. They're your girlfriend. It's better than that. They're your wife. It's better than a friendship. It's different. It's a different dynamic.
Outside of the eCam community, the eCam community is an exception. I don't have any women friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I don't have any real women friends to the best of my knowledge. I've got my friends who they're married to their wives. But am I going to call my friends' wives and say, hey, let's go hang out somewhere or whatever? No, it's inappropriate, number one. And number two, it makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's the thing about guy friends, right? When girls have guy friends and I can't stand it when a guy says, oh, my girl best friend. I'm just like, I want to punch you in the face, bro.
What?
Because one, like I'm firmly a believer that men and women can't be best friends, right? It's usually what the guy wants to bang the chick, but she's friend zoned him.
Yeah.
Right. And he's just waiting for an opportunity. He's waiting for all of like the guys that she's sleeping with to mess up so that he can swoop in and be the savior. Right. It's sneaky fucker game, we call it. And so it can only work if the guy is not sexually attracted to the girl at all. But even then, you're still more of an acquaintance, because if you have a fucking flat tire, she's not going to come help you change it, right? You have to go help her change her tire. But, if you have to move on a Saturday, you can't, she's not going to bring over pizzas and beer and help you move with her truck. No, she's going to want you to help her move with her truck, right?
I love it. I love
it's just not something that typically happens. I have there's a gal that I was training for marathons with. I consider her a friend, but even then, it's still more of an acquaintance.
Sure.
It's I think she would actually probably try to help me out if I wanted help moving. She would probably do it because she has a truck, but that's because I live in Colorado and people have trucks out here.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, I just, it kind of reminds me of that Bill Burr joke about the male feminist. Have you seen that the Bill Burr stand-up comedy about male feminism?
Oh, I love Bill Burr, dude. Yeah,
dude. Right before we went on the podcast, by the way, I just got through watching his new movie, Old Dads. It's hilarious.
Oh, is that where's that on? Is it on
It's
Netflix,
on Netflix
or something?
It's on Netflix.
Oh, I want to see that then. Yeah, I saw a trailer for it.
It's hilarious. But you remember what he said about like male feminists, right? They're always the one that, what kind of music do you like? I like whatever music you like. Right. Love me. I hope you like me.
Yeah, that's exactly what male feminists are. They're sneaky fuckers. They're just there because they think, oh, if I do this, if I'm a male feminist, then chicks are gonna like me. It's like chicks do like you as a friend, bro.
I know this one guy, and I'm not going to mention her, but I'm not going to mention the girl on the receiving end because I'm still cool with her. But this guy, he claimed to be a male feminist, but man, I don't know how he did it for him, but he was with multiple women in a short amount of span of time with this male feminist mentality and stuff like that. So that's a book that he should have written himself. He'd become a millionaire because I've never seen a male feminist be able to obtain women like that. How do you do that? I've never seen that work.
He must have had a good understanding of game and seduction, and then use that as a facade.
Right. And it's unhonorable though. Like going back to men being honorable. Come on, man. If you're going to do something, be upfront about it, man. Don't be dishonorable and pretend like that you're this. You're this guy that loves women for who they are and stuff like that, but then all of a sudden you're the biggest player out there. That's flat out deception right there.
There was a guy on TikTok that got in trouble for that. He was some Indian guy, and he would always start off his things with like God, what was it? Hello, occupier, or something like that. I can't remember. It was very racist, and he was always talking about how he was a male feminist and he was whatever, but he was like taking advantage of all these super liberal chicks.
Oh my goodness. That's funny.
Yeah.
What did they actually shave? I mean, come on now. I mean,
yeah, not into chicks with armpit hair. Just
no. It's just, I'm sorry. I keep in mind. I try to be conducive to women wanting to be them, but oh man, some things I just can't compromise with. And intentional body underarm hair. No, I can't do it, man.
It's a hard pass. Pass.
And of course, women that don't shave their legs, or at least, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like,
or women that aren't even really women anymore. They're dudes that used to be, or they're women that used to be dudes.
Oh, I'm not going down that path. I'm not
never can't tell. Never can't tell these days.
I'm not going. If we talk about that, it'll be on your show. If you ever invite me on your show, we'll do that on your show.
Yeah, we don't want to get we don't want to get you kicked off of YouTube.
Yeah. No, I look. I have I think I have I'm about to have a friendship with Renee Ritchie, by the way, who is in charge of all that. Remember when I said at the beginning of the show, I went up to Boston or Amesbury, Massachusetts last week. I found out that one of the, that was through it was the eCamp camp and stuff like that. And I found out that one of the camp counselors or whatever is real good friends with Renee Ritchie, and he told me how I could contact him. And he's the one that I think he's the one that kind of controls the whole narrative of what's supposed to be on YouTube and stuff like that. I don't quote me on that. Renee, if you're watching this, man, don't quote me on that if that's not what you do. But I would love to have to develop a professional relationship with you, and even more of an acquaintance relationship as well.
What I found is with you're typically safe past the 8-minute mark, right? That's why I don't know if you watched my show today, I was like,
Yeah,
try
I
not
watched
to cuss. I'm not trying not to cuss past, until it's the 8-minute mark.
Yeah.
Because they'll demonetize your videos if you like say anything bad. It's actually, I think it's the first 8 seconds is what the technical thing is, but
Oh, you're
I
saying
I,
that?
I wait 8 minutes before I say anything too bad.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, and
Yeah.
luckily we haven't said it. Or luckily we didn't, and so far, in my opinion, haven't. But it's just, I get it. Unless you're like, I guarantee you though, if you're probably on the same level as like Vlad TV or No Jumper or even Fresh and Fit, they're probably going to watch you in extensively as well, though, because they've got over 1 million followers.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, I'm not up that high, so I don't think I'm on their radar. But they have automation that detects that stuff. That's how they do it. And then because I get my videos flagged a lot, and I have to go in there and request a review, and they manually review it, and they usually gets overturned.
The only one that got flagged on mine was when I made a joke at myself. I talked about, being a little overweight, and I said, no, I'm not overweight. I whooped anorexia's ass. I mean, I whooped the shit out of her. I'm telling you, man. But yes, so it was just, it's just insane that like, that was the one thing that almost got me like my video taken down. Was I just said, no, I whooped the shit out of anorexia, man, because like I am a little overweight, but if I can't self-deprecate, like you shouldn't self-deprecate yourself. That's bad. That's bad advice. Don't ever talk negatively about yourself. But if you happen to throw that in there, that's my business. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me go back to the comments. I got a friend of mine on here.
Okay.
Hey, Hank, I just saw that you were on. I'm on a plane getting ready to take off. I wanted to say, hey, I love your subject matter today. Got to catch the replay hugs. Thank you, Valerie. I appreciate it. It's good to see you. I'm sorry I'm sorry I couldn't see you in Boston or Amesbury. Yeah, man. But what were you talking about? The cancel culture thing. But yeah. I don't like if I say something mean spirited towards somebody else, then I can at least, sort of justify it, so to speak. Maybe I don't necessarily have to agree with it, but I can at least justify what it is that they're doing. But if I talk negatively about myself, that's my business.
Yeah, I would say so. But yeah, they have all that automation that detects that kind of stuff. So it's sort of like it sucks too, because usually you get the most views within like the first day or so of the video going live. And so that whole time I'm demonetized, and then I'm waiting for a review. It's like sometimes it takes a week or two for them to review it. It's frustrating as heck,
Yeah. No, I get it. I know that I'm trying to be. I'm doing like the Tyrion Lannister thing. Did you watch Game of Thrones?
Oh yeah, love that series.
I loved it. I'm a huge House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, loved it. And I remember the expression that Tyrion used was that if you're going to understand your enemy, you have to take their side sometimes so that you understand them better.
Mm-hmm.
I get it now. I get it. You need to try to think like they think. And then you can logically or even, slightly emotionally think about like what it is that they are trying to do. I mean, are they trying to be tyrannical with this, or are they trying to invent a better place? I think they're really, honestly, they're trying to invent a better place, but it comes off as tyrannical. It's a chocolate cake that they're delivering, but the package is not right and the delivery is incorrect.
Well, I've been banned from TikTok once, and then my second account is totally shadow banned right now. And so when I'm dealing with YouTube's policies and stuff, I'm not that mad at it, because it's not as strict, it's not as draconian. But TikTok's like is the worst. It's the absolute worst. You can get flagged for the dumbest things, and there's no recourse. There's no recourse for it. And so that platform is awful. I used to like that platform because it was the easiest to build a following on, but even that's not easy anymore. So I'm like, screw it. Like TikTok it's dead to me. I still post on there, but it's dead to me. YouTube with all their policies, and like they demonetize Fresh and Fit and all that kind of stuff. Like I get it, but as long as you play within the rules of their game, like YouTube's pretty cool. They're pretty chill.
Right. And luckily with my mentality, my main mentality with this podcast is to talk to people, doesn't matter what their status on YouTube is or anything else, is to talk to people that create value in other people. And that's as long as, and if the package is not delivered the proper way, sometimes that's not necessarily always the receiver's end faults. And it's, if the pack, and also there is this thing called forgiveness too. Like I don't think the same way I did 15 years ago. I don't think the same way I did 15 years ago. I mean, we're talking about, you talk about like all these guys being kind of beta and stuff like that, man. When I was in my teens, I was like that. I'm not like that now.
Oh, I same. But the thing, like the way I talk about it is, I don't like to use the term like alpha and beta as a label, like, oh, this guy's a beta, this guy's an alpha. I think that's dumb. Because the real concept of alpha and beta actually is best described not in Rollo's book, but in this book right here. Hold on, let me pull this up.
Which one do you got?
This book right here. I got tons of books. This one right here.
The Married
Man's Sex Life Primer by Athol K.
I love it.
The way he describes it, and that's actually a married red pill sidebar item. So it's like a recommended reading for guys who are married and they want to learn red pill. He describes alpha and beta as chemical responses in a woman's brain, right? So if you provide dopamine, right? If you provide that dopamine hit, that's giving her an alpha experience, right? And then if you give her the oxytocin, that's giving her the comfort experience. So that's, she's loving you because of you're providing for her and stuff like that. But women want both of those things.
Sure.
So that's like the whole concept of hypergamy in the space is, alpha fucks, beta bucks, but women want both. Yeah. The thing is that guys are really interested in sex, right? So if you want to make sure you don't end up in a dead bedroom, you have to optimize on that alpha dopamine response side of you. But if you want to have a long-term relationship, you also have to be able to provide that comfort love.
Right.
So I don't like labeling it as oh, like this guy's, oh, he's such a beta, I don't do that.
Right. And I feel like that it's a little bit more difficult nowadays to hit that, dopamine in women nowadays because of their cell phones and their easy access to things, even like a little like phone video game or something like that. All you got to do is just pick it up. You don't have to wait to get home in front of your computer to play your video game. You could play Candy Crush or Angry Birds or whatever the popular game is on the phone now. And, you do it immediately. So I feel like it's a little bit more difficult now to hit that dopamine, scientifically speaking, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Phones are the worst. And I'm totally addicted to my phone. I think Nurse Chick probably hates it. And then I justify it because I'm like, well, I've got social media I got to run. But I'm totally just addicted to the fucking phone,
I couldn't believe, I went on a cruise in 2014 and I couldn't, and you can't use phones on there unless you want to pay for a Wi-Fi service, which is an astronomical amount. I couldn't believe how much my body and mind healed just from that week of being on the cruise. Because of the fact that I had no access to my phone. I mean, all I did was, and clearly, I didn't have it on me because there was no point in it. The clock wasn't working, nothing. I could take pictures. At the time, my camera phone was not, was not very, camera-like, so to speak, and so I didn't have my phone on me for like a week, man, and I couldn't believe how much my mind and body healed. And I study the psychology of the mind. I heard you talking about Dr. Joe Dispenza earlier today, and I believe in some of his concepts.
Yeah, I actually, so I'm a big law of attraction guy. So
Me too.
There's I talk about it a lot in the podcast. There's 3 explanations for it, right? There's like a spiritual one. So if you're like religious and you want to believe in God and stuff like that, perfect. It goes hand in hand with that. Mm-hmm. If you are more of a science guy, then maybe the quantum theory stuff makes more sense and resonates with you, but it's really hard to wrap your mind around some of the quantum theory stuff. So I like the the psychological explanation. It's the simplest.
Yes.
Most people understand it. It's not hard to explain. It makes sense when you break it down that way to most people. And you're like, it's not magical thinking. We're just reprogramming our subconscious mind. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, our mutual colleague, Andrew Kapp, was on my show about a month ago. And,
Yeah.
he broke it down very well. And I've read all three of No, I'm sorry. I haven't read Just Feel Good, but I've read 2 of his books. And
did you read his book on how he sold 1 million copies?
yeah, I read that one. The 3 words to sell 100,000 copies or something like that. Yeah. I read that one, and I read the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. I read that one like 2 years ago, and Just Feel Good just came out this past summer, if I'm not mistaken, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
I listened to that one. I have he sent me an autographed copy of his The 3 words to sell 100,000. I haven't read that one all the way through yet. I need to read it because I just wrote a book myself, and it's in editing right now. So I need to figure out how to sell it. So I got to read that book. But Just Feel Good's a short book. It's a short read. It's like
130
like
pages.
if you listen to it on audio, it's like, an hour and a half or something. It's pretty short.
Yeah, The Science of Getting Rich is about that long. So, and I've read that one and listened to an audiobook many times. But yeah, by the way, that's one of my bucket lists, is to be able to write a book one day. Probably not on the same topic that you guys are talking about, but
my topic is my book is called Everything I Wish I Knew When I Was 18, and it talks about law of attraction, talks about picking a career, it talks about financial planning, diet and fitness.
yeah.
And then it talks about dating and spinning plates and relationships and marriage. So it's like, it's the whole gambit of everything that I learned basically since my divorce.
Oh no, I believe it. And that's a good name for a book. And believe me, I will be picking up a copy. I've read more books in the past 6 years than I have in my entire life. So.
Oh yeah, same. Yeah.
Do you know who Steve Sims is?
I don't.
He's pretty good. He's a little bit abrasive. I'm supposed to have him on the show here in the next couple of weeks or so, maybe. But he's got a book called Go for Stupid, and I'm like, I love the titles of these books because the covers. There's not really much you could do with the cover sometimes if you don't have an artistic mind. But if you come up with a cool title like that, like Go for Stupid, or like your book, Things I Wish I Knew at 18 or something like that, that's a great name.
Well, I mean, it really is. I'm writing it in the hopes that not only does my audience read it and learn some stuff from it, maybe that they didn't know before, but if they really get value out of it and they have kids, that they give it to their kids, and like, hey, read this, maybe a graduation gift for a kid coming out of high school, because if I would have not just learned that stuff, but applied it, my life would change. My daughter is one of those people that she listens to me, and I can tell because I tell her what to do. And then I turn around, and a couple weeks later, I see her actively applying it. And I'm like, that's amazing. Because as a teenager, when I was a kid, if my parents told me to do something, I'd be like, fuck you, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't tell me what to do. So no. I love that my daughter does that. And I'm sure there's other kids out there that are like that.
Sure. And like you said, I mean, just from hearing you talk about her, she seems like she's got her shit together. So
she does. I'm really proud of her. Yeah.
Where's she going to college?
Colorado Mesa University out in Grand Junction.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that one. I'm just curious because
no one's heard of it. Yeah.
Well, the state of Colorado, ever since Deion Sanders, has moved out there, is like the topic of the town right now. I mean,
yeah. He's the coach of the CU Buffaloes, but so CMU is a part of the state system though. So like if my daughter wanted to transfer, she could go to CSU, which is just north of CU, and that's the CU Ram or the CSU Rams. But she's so she's at CMU, which is the state college that's out here in Grand Junction, Colorado.
Yeah. Oh man. Are you? So I see in your background, by the way, you're a wrestling fan too?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Me too.
In fact, when I met Nurse Chick, right, I met her for that coffee date.
Okay.
And she was supposed to go to work that night, and so that's why we went to coffee. And so my plan, it was a Sunday. I was like, I'm gonna go home and watch WrestleMania. It was WrestleMania Sunday, and that was my plan for the evening. So I left the coffee. I went in for a kiss, went home, I get this random text message from her saying, "So, I don't have to work tonight. I got low census. What are you up to?" And I was like, just, a student of the game. I knew that she wanted to hang out. So I said, "Well, I'm watching WrestleMania. You're welcome to join me." So she drove an hour to my house, and I introduced her to WrestleMania. And the rest is history. We've been together for 2.5 years now.
AEW Collision's coming to Memphis tomorrow night. I'm going.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
I went to the last AEW show in Salt Lake City before the pandemic.
You drove all the way to Utah?
Yeah, it's only 5 hours.
Only 5 hours. Well,
I live in the middle of nowhere, so everything's 5 hours.
Okay, that makes sense. Because where I come from, 3 hours is pushing it. But Memphis is 3 hours from Nashville, 2.5 hours from Little Rock, 3 hours from Jackson, Mississippi, 3 or 4 hours away from Louisville, Kentucky. So,
the further west you get in the United States, everything gets spread out more.
I found that out when I went to, up to Massachusetts last week. I found out that New Hampshire is literally like within an hour of Boston. It's just maybe an hour at most, and I couldn't believe it. And then I've been out to Phoenix, Arizona before. I took a 3-day trip out to Phoenix, Arizona 16 years ago, I think it was. And you don't realize how big this land is until you get, it took us 2 days to drive through Texas.
Yep.
I drove, we drove down to Dallas, Texas, and then all of a sudden we drove over to Van Horn, which took us 8 hours. I had my grandparents with me who were senior citizens, and then drove from there to Phoenix. So 3 days.
Yeah.
And
so like where I'm at, it's also 5 hours to Denver. So if WWE or AEW come to town, I look at, it's either in Denver or Salt Lake City that I'm going to go see it. Yeah.
Well, then that's not too bad then, because it's kind of expected over there. Over here, it's different. We're a little spoiled because, we 3 hours away. I can take a road trip on a 3 hour. I've been to Nashville and back in a day. So you could do it.
Yeah. Oh man, this year I took I don't know if you know who Aaron Clary is.
I do not.
He's a prominent YouTuber. He's more of like the financial space. But he's also on Rule Zero with me and John Fitch and stuff too. And he lives up in South Dakota. And earlier this year, I rode my motorcycle up to South Dakota to go hang out at his house, and we went to Sturgis together. So that was like a 14-hour drive on my bike. It was long.
I'm never doing that. Sturgis, South Dakota.
Yeah, and on a motorcycle my ass hurt after that.
No, Dad's done it. Dad's done it before. It's no joke. But I don't know if it's quite 14 hours. I don't know how far the drive is, but from Memphis. But he's been to Sturgis, and
I told Nurse Chick if she comes with me next year that we'll do it, but it's going to be multiple legs.
What kind of bike you got?
I've got a 2000. What year is it? 2015 Honda Shadow.
Dude,
Shadow Phantom. Yeah,
those will get you far. Everybody always likes Harleys. I'm like, dude, Hondas will last longer.
I was taking it to get maintenance before that trip, and I took it to a shop over here, and the guy's like, "Man, these bikes are great." He's like, it was a Harley shop too, and the guy's like, "These bikes, as long as you just get an oil change, they'll last forever." I'm like, "Cool, all right."
I'm a big guy, so I'll have to get a full-blown cruiser when I go. But if I ever do ride, I've never owned a bike, and I've always wanted one, but it's just not the time of my life right now. I knew it was going to be above the age of 40 before I'd get a bike.
I never thought I would ever get a bike, and then I ended up dating a chick that was into bikes, and so she taught me how to ride, and then I ended up buying my own bike, and then we broke up, and so then I had this bike, and I still had to go get my motorcycle endorsement, so I went and took motorcycle classes. In fact, the last day of the motorcycle class is the day I met Nurse Chick.
Oh, nice. Oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's great. I'm gonna tell you, my stepsister and her husband got married about 1.5 years ago, and he crashed his bike on their wedding day and had scars and scratches on him and stuff like that. But he was out of commission for about a year without the bike because he had to get it repaired. He said he felt so lost. So I can't, you know, it's something about it. Maybe once I get a bike, I'll understand that even more. But I can't imagine, you know, not being, you know, not being, or imagine being crippled by something like that. But I get it. My dad, you know, he loves to ride. So that's his, it was when he was riding his bike, he decided to retire from his job. So I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a constant concern. And I think anybody that doesn't worry about it is crazy, you know? And I always just, when I'm riding my bike, I'm assuming everything's trying to kill me. You know, the road itself is trying to kill you. Like people can't see you. So I'm very cautious when I drive, when I ride my bike. Nurse Chick, she was out practicing. She dumped her bike, like the first week she had her bike.
Yeah.
Poor
Yeah.
thing. She dumped it. Yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
so she had to spend like a lot of money on the repairs and stuff. She didn't even have her endorsement yet. Poor
No,
thing.
I don't know what it is about women when they get injured, but they recover quicker for some reason. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. Luckily she wasn't going that fast.
and how old is she?
She is 35.
Okay, yeah, so she's still young. She's still very
Yeah.
young. But you know, it's just
Yeah. She's 9 years younger than me. Can I get a fist bump on that? Okay.
yeah, she's still relatively young, so it's
Yeah.
her body would heal a lot quicker. And I don't know what it is about women, you know, they heal a lot quicker than we do, I guess. But
Yeah. She's also a fitness competitor, so she eats well and you know, she works out and she's very healthy.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you being here, man. I'm gonna wrap this up, but I want to do this again. Do you want to do this again here in a few months?
Sure, man. Yeah, anytime.
Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
have you on the podcast sometime.
Okay, yeah, no problem, man. You know, and yeah, well, I'll definitely jump on you. You let me know, and I'll have you on in a few months or so. But there was a bunch of other things I wanted to ask you about, but I think that let's keep them hang. I'm gonna keep them hanging.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna end this, and then we'll talk afterwards for a sec.
Okay.
So, sounds good, man. Hold on one sec. Man, I appreciate him coming on, man. That's man, cool as hell, dude. He lived up to my expectations. Paul did. So I appreciate y'all being here. I know it's been a little bit since I did my last show. Been out of town. Want to give a shout out to the eCam community real quick. Thank you. You know, everybody in the group's been doing their, you know, shout outs and stuff like that. If anybody from the eCam community is watching this or in the next couple episodes, I will acknowledge what a great time that was. Y'all have a good evening. Thank you for watching the Hank Russell Invitation.